Everyone is impressed by Stellar Blade's physics, of course not the Mary Sue. This is a predictable outcome because usually a very conservative stance when it comes to the overall appeal and look of women in gaming, and Stellar Blade does its best to appeal to the male gaze, which is something the Mary Sue is very against. But the fan base themselves have been rejoicing online with multiple clips that have come out just showing the type of care the developers took in the overall look of the female character Eve, where it's being praised for the depiction of her assets in the game. But of course, like I mentioned before, a lot of people are complaining about that, specifically the Mary Sue, who brought up an article where it was complaining about the controversy around Eve, the main character of the game, and how the disgusting looks of men are ruining Stellar Blade. It seems like they have no problem with the overall look of Stellar Blade, but they have a problem with the male gaze being catered to and the fan base themselves actually demanding for someone to look like this and their aversion to women that look more realistic in the gaming space. And I think this is something we hear often from these games journalists and activists, saying there's nothing wrong with the overall attractiveness of the character as long as it only pleases the female gaze. And I think that's the thing that we see in a lot of the video game industry, where we get these female character models that look more unimpressive to kind of balance and secure a lot of the female gaze, where they don't feel insecure in themselves when they look at these female characters. I think you get the opposite with Eve, where it is the idealistic look of a female attractive superhero that will get the gaze of men. And I think that is the thing that is upsetting the Mary Sue when it comes to Stellar Blade, that it is attracting a lot of male attention and it is pulling away from the kind of overall diagnosis and changes within the industry, where we're seeing mostly people pulling away from making attractive women in gaming. And I think that is why the praise is coming for Stellar Blade, because it's doing the opposite of every gaming studio in the Western world right now. It's trying to produce a game that has a heavy focus on the male gaze, because predominantly the gaming audience is male, surprisingly, to these games journalists who always try to dictate and say most gamers are women, when in actuality it's overwhelmingly 80% men that are actually playing these games, at least on console and PC. Of course, there's a small minority of women that are dedicated gamers, but they always cite a poll saying no, it's actually 55% women. When you look at the numbers, that goes only to mobile gaming, where you can say yes, it's 50% women, probably around 40% women playing mobile games, but that doesn't apply to the console gaming space or PC space. And I think they're always using those numbers to attribute to the PC and console gaming space, when that is not the fact. You're appealing to a largely male demographic, and I think that is the case with Stellar Blade, where it is taking advantage of that system, is taking advantage of those real stats and saying, okay, let's appeal to the male gaze. And I think that's why you're getting Stellar Blade that looks exactly like this, where it is appealing to the largely majority male demographic that are playing these console and PC games. And I think that is the exact thing that is angering to the Mary Sue and all these other games journalists when they're talking about Stellar Blade, because it exposes their false statistics, their false data for being unrealistic and hurting these companies. Because if you follow the real data, it brings you back to this location where men are playing these games, men like seeing attractive women, men will buy these games if it has attractive women in it. And I think it's bringing back that simplistic data and truth and facts back into the industry, where a lot of these companies ignored it because they were getting consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc. speaking in the ear saying no one wants to see these attractive women, no one wants to see these physical features and assets being displayed in a way where it appeals to men. And I think that is the false dichotomy that we're seeing now being exposed within the industry with Stellar Blade, where people are saying, yes, we want to see this, we want good storytelling, we don't mind having characters that are not super pretty or anything like that, but we do still want to see the attractive characters. I think even some of the female video game fans still want to see attractive characters because they're gamers. They just want to see idealistic versions of characters. It's the same with the men. No one wants to see a pot-belly gamer being a fighter in Tekken. No one wants to see Jin having a scruffy beard and long hair looking like Osmond Gold or something. No one wants to see that. People want to see idealistic male form, and we're not complaining about that. And I think that's the main thing that is happening here, where most men are just not applying this to the female body. It's applied to the male body as well. No one wants to see an ugly fat guy that looks like a gamer be the main character in Tekken or any of these adventure games like Uncharted or something like that. You want to see peak physical male doing things that we can't do. And I think that's the same thing with the female characters. You can't have just a pot belly female character paired up with a male character that is unrealistic. That just breaks the fantasy. And I think that is the problem with these games journalists that don't play video games. I think that's the main thing we get from the Mary Sue. It's just there are people not playing video games. They're applying their real world logic into the gaming space because they have no concept of how people play games or why people even play video games. They're just there to take control of the video game space, inject it with their own political influence because they see it as a political sphere of influence. That's all. They see video games as a point of attack where they can influence and change young people's minds. So it's not about the video games when it comes to these games journalists and the Mary Sue. They see this, okay, we're trying to change males' perspectives on women. We just want to change how women look. We don't care about what people actually want in video games. We think this is going to improve our agenda if we change the minds of men and make it think this way. But in actuality, you're just ruining video games, and men are going to go towards the games that have a perspective that is pleasing to them. And I think that is what we're seeing with Stellar Blade, where people are moving towards things that look good, are attractive, and are appealing, and are fun as well. And I think that's the key thing with Stellar Blade. It looks fun. If it just was her walking around looking good, people would be like, yeah, it's okay, but the gameplay is trash. But no, the gameplay still looks good, the character looks good, and you have the perfect combination of a game. And I think that is the thing that we're seeing in the video game industry, where real video games that appeal to the actual fan base are having success. And I think a lot of games companies are going to realize this is the winning formula, appealing to the gamers themselves and seeing the real stats and demographics, not trying to change who actually plays your games, because the people that a lot of these AAA game companies are trying to appeal to never play games and will never want to play these console PC games. Even the games journalists that are looking for help, or the consultancy firms they're looking for help from, they don't want to play games. So they're asking a bunch of people that don't play games. And with all these corporations as well, you have executives and board of directors that never play games, and these are the people that are developing video games in the industry. And I think it's probably not going to change, because we have so much people that are uninterested in the fan base that are controlling these products, that it's unlikely that they'll adjust in time where they'll be able to be successful enough to actually pivot and make a game that is worthy of the player base. But that's just my thoughts on the situation. Tell me what you think about Stellar Blade, where the fan base are just amazed by the physics and just the looks of the characters. I know that viral video went trending of her just climbing up the ladder, people just loving it and enjoying it. And of course, I have no problem with that. That is just people missing that idealistic look of a female character that has been stripped away in most games recently. And I think it is lending a large hand in the success of Stellar Blade, but I think Stellar Blade just looks like a good game as well. At least those are my thoughts on the situation. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave your comments, tell me what you think, like, share, and subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.